All right, I will call the meeting to order of the Kerrville Economic Improvement Corporation. Greg Appel is going to lead us in an invocation.
Thank you. Would you pray with me, please? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings of new beginnings. And Lord, in this first month of the new year, we just pray for 2022. Lord, looking back, last year was a tough year for many, and yet much good stuff was accomplished, and we thank you for that. And we just pray for your guidance and direction that much can be accomplished again this year. And we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Kesha, do we have any visitors that want to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 4A and the approval of the minutes from our December 20th meeting, which were included in your package. I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
Second.
Moving to second. Everybody in favor, raise your hand. And that's approved. All right, we move on next to KEDC update. Mr. Salinas.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We're going to be doing our end-of-year presentation and then our plans moving into 2022. I'm going to go ahead and start with our deliverables our deliverables, and then I'll hand it over to Teresa so she can finish the other half of the presentation. So as far as public relations and social media, we had 7 press releases that were issued at the national, state, national, and international level. And from that was Gulf Avionics and the RBR announcement, which were the ones that got the most traction as far as PR. Also the Courage Entrepreneur Center, as well as the awards that we received from the IEDC and the SEDC, and also the Business Innovation Forum. We had about 39 pieces of coverage that came out of those press releases, and again, this was at the national level. We've been tracking those. From that, we had 169,000 estimated coverage views from the articles. And then on our social media platforms, we had 450 posts, which generated 88,000 interactions from social media. So all in all, when you put it through the advertising and marketing formulas that are out there, we had about 49 million online impressions and readership for all the PR activity that we had last year. Moving on to speaking engagements, we had a string of those. Actually, it was a total of about 14. And those are designed for a national audience. So aside from the local speaking engagements that we do with some of the local entities and clubs, 6 were for the International Economic Development Council, the Texas EDC, then also the Economic Development Leadership Summit. And that one specifically, they asked us to come in and talk about the aerospace projects that we were working, how it is at a rural community, because on paper we pop up as a rural community, how we're able to land those. And then we had 4 events where we actually pitched Kerrville to investors. One was the Texas Brazil Chamber. We're not in Brazil for that one, but it was virtual. And then the Tokyo Metro partnership with the Texas Governor's Office. Teresa did that one, where she's pitching to entrepreneurs and small business owners from the Tokyo area. And then we were one of 50 cities selected to speak with the U.S. Deputy Secretary of Commerce, Mr. Dominic Graves. And again, just kind of share some information as to what was happening in our community during COVID and how the Economic Development Organization was working with that. Next week, myself, I'll be in LA for one of these summits, a leadership summit. And I'm on a panel talking about rebuilding communities post-COVID through your entrepreneurial base. So that's going to give us some great exposure and an opportunity for myself to meet with some other, leaders as far as economic development organizations in other communities, what they're doing, and specifically what I'm looking for is, okay, who's got a workforce housing model that we can start working with. We had 4 interviews on national podcasts. A couple of those were through the Top 50 Economic Developers Association, and then the IEDC's 95th anniversary special marketing campaign. On the corporate recruitment side, and I like to say that this is where the rubber meets the pavement, the core of what an economic development organization does. And I will say it was a little hard to follow what we did the previous year because that's when we had the announcement of Killdeer Mountain Manufacturing. However, the success of that project has really opened the doors for us as far as opportunities with other projects. Hence, that's how we're able to get the Gulf Avionics and RBR Aviation projects. So we had a total of about 125 leads that were generated from internally from the staff, website, walk-ins, the governor's office, and then site selectors and consultants that were calling our office as well. From that, we hosted 7 actual prospects. 2 were in manufacturing, 2 in aviation and avionics, and then 1 was in entertainment and 2 were hotel projects. So the entertainment prospect and the hotel projects, those get handed over to the city. They take the lead in that particular case if it's within the city limits, and then we're in a support role. So from that, we had 2 closed deals and a third that's still pending. And again, that's Gulf and RBR. And that's 50 jobs paying $70,000 in annual salaries. Obviously, there was an article not long ago where they're looking for employees. Over the next 5 years, the economic impact of that project is $30 million over the next 10 years. Now, on incentives from these projects last year, there was $0 that were paid to projects that were worked through the KEDC. Now, importing money, that's a category that I like to focus on because it's a responsibility of the EDO to work or leverage the relationships it has at the state and federal level to import money for our local companies as well. So there was an announcement last week when the Texas Workforce Commissioner, and Chairman Brian Daniel was in town last week. Part of his tour in the community was coming in and presenting a check for $188,000, and that was a JET grant, that Jobs, Education, and Training to Ingram ISD. So that announcement was done last week. And then prior to that, All Plastics Manufacturing also received $115,000 through a Workforce Skills Development Fund, which is through the Workforce Commission. And then our organization proper got about $32,800 in a PPP forgivable loan for our operation as well. So again, example of importing money into the community. Then we still have some pending programs as far as state funds for the Gulf Avionics. James Avery, we've been working with them for a while now, trying to get something for them as well. And then a newer project, which is Project Water Bikers, which I think they fit nicely, being somewhat of a new entity that's looking at Kerrville, and a new program that's going to be rolled out in the next couple of months through the governor's office. I think it would fit in nice. So we've got that one in the pipeline. Okay, so before I turn it over to Teresa, a little bit on the Business Innovation Forum. I had already reported on this at the last meeting as far as some of the deliverables and outcomes. There was a handful of job offers that were made to some of the attendees, internship opportunities. Ingram ISD came in, as well as KISD with some of their students, principal and the director of their vocational and trade program. We had a total of 249 attendees, and it was a combination of in-person, Zoom, and also people that registered and said, just send us a recording when it's finished. So again, that's kind of like a hybrid on top of a hybrid as far as what we're seeing for conferences. So we had some site selectors that came in toward the city. We signed up some people for the Kerr Edge Center. But what I really like to point out as far as, one of the outcomes that came in through that forum is, I mentioned the $188,000 that Ingram ISD is getting. That was a direct result from the Innovation Forum. The governor's office was there, as well as, the school districts, and that's where they started having these conversations as far as what we can do, for your local school district. And as a result of that, they started working on the P-TECH opportunities and then also the JET grant. Fast forward, 2 months later, which is today, Ingram is already getting that money that's going specifically for students who are looking to work in manufacturing within Kerr County. So that's money that's well invested in our community as far as going back into our local workforce. I'm going to turn it over to Teresa, and then I'll come back and close, and we'll be open to any questions you all might have.
Thank you and good afternoon. It's always a pleasure to be here to fill you in on all of the things that we're working on, particularly being able to recap all of our deliverables for 2021. So I'm going to continue with those deliverables, focusing mainly on our business retention expansion efforts. So during the course of 2021, we had the opportunity to interact with about 134 companies or industry partners, and that was through a variety of different programs, including our roundtables and various Zoom meetings, as well as interacting with Workforce Solutions offices and linking up those partners with our local companies. We were able to assist 4 companies with state funding, which Gil has already gone over. Expanding on that, we hosted last year 3 industry roundtables, and we had 41 opportunities to engage again with our local companies and our workforce partners, and that ranges from both the Texas Workforce Commission at the state level, as well as our local Kerrville Career Center, and as well as Workforce Solutions Alamo area. We issued 2 white papers. The most recent was the one on workforce, which is available on our website. Prior to that, we issued one on placemaking and economic development, which I believe was presented here at EIC, and that was geared towards more of the quality of life and its impact on economic development. Through our industry and roundtable meetings, we created webinars summarizing the information throughout those roundtables. That's all available on our YouTube channel. So anything that we've put together in a Zoom format or in a webinar format for the public, that's available on our YouTube channel. In spring of 2021, we launched the Kerr Edge Entrepreneur Center. That has remained primarily virtual for the entrepreneurs and the members that are a part of that. Just today, we added a new aspect to that website, which is a platform that allows both current business owners or entrepreneurs within the community that either want to grow their business or want to start a business. It gives them the opportunity to input information about their business, do comparatives, so they can find out what average wages are, they can find out average operating hours for their business in comparison to others that are already existing. It provides them with all types of demographic information, everything from where those other businesses are located, so maybe a gap in where it would be best for them to locate. So lots of really great information. If you have the opportunity to check it out, I would encourage you to do that. That is on our kerredge.org website. We also hosted 7 podcasts on economic dialogue, and those were primarily with our economic development partners, so our resource partners, and that's ACOG, Hallmark University, Schreiner University, as well as Katie Milton Jordan, who has been just a huge advocate and supporter of our Kerr Edge program. So as a recap, we did have Chairman Daniel in last week as part of our first, our Industry One quarterly roundtable. It was a phenomenal week. He was here for, again, multiple purposes, but we had a great roundtable session with him, followed by a luncheon. Lots of incredible feedback and connections were made during that time, so we look forward to the upcoming ones throughout the rest of the year. We will be polling our stakeholders for our second biannual stakeholder retreat. So you'll be looking for that in order for us to be able to do that sometime between February or March. We also have plans in May to host Joe Magruder from the Office of the Governor. He is the Texas Director of Aviation, Aerospace, and Space. So we're looking forward to having him in to tour the different facilities within the community, connect with Kerrville ISD with their aviation programs, as well as incorporate that in with a workforce signing event that we want to host with all of our independent school districts. So that looks very similar to what they do for sports signing events, but we would be working with our industry partners in the community to identify young students that are going to be graduating and immediately entering into the workforce and celebrating that achievement. At the beginning of February, we will be starting the submission process for our third annual Top 40 program. We're excited this year to be able to kind of shine a spotlight on some of our industry workers in hospitality, as well as those who have really gone above and beyond in service in our healthcare industries, our teachers, our city police force, firefighters. So a little bit different than what we've seen in the past, but also very relevant to what is the core of being a quality of life place in Kerrville. And that's definitely those individuals that have gone above and beyond in those categories. We will also be hosting our second annual Business and Innovation Forum coming up in November. And we're really excited to be able to take the feedback that we received from last year in November, kind of look at what worked and what didn't, and really build a great program for this coming one. And kind of tying all of that up, we received, as Gil said, additionally, in 2020, we received 4 IEDC awards. And one in particular was the Gold Award, which was provided for our special purpose website, which is the Kerr Edge Entrepreneur Center. So we were really great to be able to receive that national recognition for that. We also received 4 SEDC awards, and those were primarily in communication awards, primarily focused on our branding and our marketing efforts, including all of our rebranding efforts that we went through. That's all I have.
What's the film
you.
stuff that you've done? HBO he's got here.
Oh, that was, forget the name of the show, but it's Nicole Kidman is in a HBO series that was filmed. Part of it was filmed here. And it was announced at the Innovation Forum. So I think comes out later this year. So yeah, they hired a bunch of local extras, used some of the local services and what have you. And the Texas Film Commissioner was here for the forum, announced it. And she toured the community, took a bunch of photos for their location, I forget the name of it, but you know, what location scouts are looking for in specific communities. And she said, yeah, we're gonna be back. There's you know, the proximity to Austin, being able to just, you know, come in for a few days and go back. And then, you know, having access to some of the local talent, they said, yeah, we'll end up coming back. And again, that happened at the forum. Okay, so, all right, so, all right, I don't need the last slide. So basically, just in closing, you know, I think you all have heard me about saying, you know, it's all about connecting the dots. And last week was a perfect example of how we just connected the dots with local industry, you know, education, academia, higher education, and the public sector. We hosted a delegation from Bismarck. The mayor from Bismarck was here, met with our mayor, looking at opportunities in economic development, you know, workforce, higher education, so on and so forth. And then we also had a prospect that was part of that group, looking at, you know, starting or expanding in this area. And again, you know, you've heard me say how, you know, project like Killdeer is going to continue giving as far as opportunities. Well, that was another one of those opportunities. So we're running with that project. And then the other one, we had the workforce commissioner here in town as well, who helped us with the industry roundtable discussion, in addition to touring the community, going to the school district, meeting some of our, some of you all were part of that, meeting with some of our local leadership. So, and just in closing, you know, the commissioner did pull me aside and said, it's been a while since I've been to Kerrville, but I will say that this place is just prime. It's prime as far as growth and opportunity. He said, your job is to make sure that it doesn't get engulfed as far as what, you know, we've seen with other communities, because you see it all over the Texas Triangle, which we're right on the edge, to make sure that it doesn't get engulfed. Then he said, however, you can't say no to some of these companies that are looking at the area. He said, so just be mindful of that. And I'm like, oh, trust me, I get reminded about that all the time. So it's like, just, you know, he said, I see it. And again, this is well, he'll take back to the governor himself as far as, you know, this is a community that you should be looking at because they've got some good things going on. So, you know, there were several reasons for him coming in, and that's another one that gets taken back to the Capitol. With that, that concludes our presentation, our end of year and moving into 2022. If you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Gil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Our next agenda item is the project status report, and Mr. Hoppy's provided us with an updated spreadsheet of the 3 projects we have in queue right now. I have just one question, EA, on the Killdeer Mountain Manufacturing. What's their estimated time to complete construction, and how many employees do they have locally right now?
So they have 14 employees right now as of December. They're basically looking at hiring 4 per month over the next 12 months, and really in the foreseeable future as they continue to ramp up per their agreement, economic development agreements with us. They are intending to have around 50 employees by the time that they move over to their facility at Airport Commerce Loop in the hopefully December timeframe. December of 22 is when they're hoping. Boeing closes for about 3 weeks during the holidays, and so that's when they're hoping to shift over, because they're already they've got the first one off the line already here a couple weeks ago. So they're already starting to ship product out
Really?
from Kerrville, which is really exciting.
Heard that.
Cool.
Yeah, so, and if you'd like, we were gonna talk about it in future agenda items later, but they offered up if the EIC would like a tour in the future, we certainly can coordinate with them and maybe get a tour right before or right after one of our future meetings.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, we move on to financial reports.
Good afternoon, Board.
Good afternoon.
There we go. Okay, so we're going to discuss December financials. Here on your first slide, you have your statement of activities, and we're looking at your second column and everything to the right. So for October sales tax, October sales and December sales tax that came in, $333,000 for the month. And this is close to a 4% increase over December 2020 actuals. That was about $320,000 last year. So this puts you year-to-date on sales tax revenue at $1.1 million. Your next column to the right of that is your year-to-date budget estimate. So last meeting, you asked to see this a little bit differently. We, in the past, were showing you what percent you had dipped into your budget and how much more before you meet that budget. So we're looking at this now, just it reflects the estimate of where we expect you to be at about this time of the year. So we looked at the last 3 years' history, and by December, we expect you to be about 23% of your budget. So that's the $974,000 you see there. And you've surpassed that by $144,000 so far. Sales tax, we do continue to see it strong with contributions from retail, food service, manufacturing, and wholesale trade are the top folks. And last week, we did receive January sales tax already, and EIC portion is $420,000. So the initial calculation reflects that to be about 26% increase, but looking at it, we had about $57,000 in future payments come in. Take that out, about 20% over last year. So it's still treading pretty high. We can talk a little bit about sales tax trends. So of course, our economy is just escalating daily, and most of it is inflation. So at the end of 2021, economists said we were about 7% and had a 7% inflation rate. So basically, what consumers are spending today, they're paying 7% more on what they were spending a year ago for those exact items. That's the highest since 1982, they say. So looking at the last 4 months that we've received sales tax, we're looking about 10% average right now over last year's stuff has come in. So we'll just continue watching it and keep hoping that it's I don't know if it stays high, but we want it to kind of level out here so it's not so unexpected, but it's a volatile market. So over down to your interest income For the month of December, you earned $248 in your pool account, and this pool is up 3 basis points from last month. It's at 9 basis points, so that's $90 more this month that we earned on that. Down to your expenditures, your monthly administrative fees went out for $16,000, and your monthly debt transfer of $90,781. And then further down your project section, you'll see that your first payment to Arcadia Live went out. Based on the contract, they were asked to raise matching funds for the remaining $200,000, and we did get a request for the second tranche of payment because they were successful at that effort and met that. So you'll see that in your January financials. And highlighted in the yellow in the project section also is your new Sid Peterson Memorial Project. We budgeted the first round of the substantial completion of the parking lot area. Possibly it may fall into this year, so we put that at $800,000. That total contract was $1.6 million.
Just a quick question, I guess, to EA. Where does that project stand, EA? Are they breaking ground? Are they getting ready to, or?
So it's, the surgical center, will be, breaking ground in the May timeframe. The annexation, of the 157 acres, just south of the existing hospital is in process. So that had a first reading and was accepted on first reading. There'll be a second reading at city council, tomorrow.
Are they going to, as I recall, they were gonna build the parking lot first and then the surgical center?
Correct, because those spaces essentially will be needed as they're shifting folks over, because that's an existing parking lot. So their intent is to be hustling this spring and to hopefully have quite a bit of that construction done on the infrastructure behind in the south part of their new campus, before they break ground in the May timeframe for the surgical center.
Thank you, sorry.
No problem. Okay, so that gives you a net change in position this month for $26,000, and overall for the year, you're at $520,000. Okay, on to your cash flow forecast. Your first column is your FY 2022 actuals from October through December activity, and down there at the bottom column shows you your ending cash balance of $3.2 million. And your columns to the right are your remaining FY 22 projections. So if you take note on your sales tax row there, your revenue numbers have been adjusted quarterly based. We talked about adjusting those quarterly based on the current trends. So those all have been up by about 10% over the remaining time here. Your expenditures are pretty set. And then down at the bottom are your project dollars that are expected to be paid out the remaining of the year. So you'll see January $200,000 for Arcadia and then $800,000 for Sid Peterson.
What is the $25,000 to the airport projects anticipated for third quarter?
That is very unexpected, but we anticipate something being asked on that. That's the remaining of their hangar projects and what are going on out there, the box hangars.
It's really just a plug number right now. I know this group has been interested in having a report on status update from Mary. Mary wasn't able to attend today, so we didn't have that on your agenda, but if we want to have that in February or March, she's prepared to come give the latest with you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, and lastly is your financial analysis. So it's just an overview. Top chart is your project commitment balances as of December. And the next section in the middle is your sales tax revenues, showing budget, actual, and comparisons to last year. And then your bottom is just your tax pool balance there. We do have a presentation coming up later in the meeting to go over some investment opportunities and just an overview of that section.
Okay, any questions on any of the financial presentation?
Back on the statement of activities,
Yes, sir.
I think that what I meant to suggest, I guess maybe I didn't communicate it very well, but I'd like to see under the expenditures the same two columns that you have up under the income. So if the whole thing would just show overall, are we ahead or behind our budget? So
Okay.
Personally, I'd like to see that all the way down, and to include the expenditures in that format going forward.
Okay, we can do that. I mean, they're pretty set, but yes, we'll be right at what we've spent up to that point.
Sure. The other point is that you put this 800,000 on the annual budget. We didn't amend our budget. So I don't really think that should go there. That 800,000, I think, is just something we've done after we budgeted. It's properly shown on our projection of cash flow and in our commitments. But I mean, I'm not trying to be real technical here, but I don't really think that's in our budget. It's something outside of our budget.
Right, well, we wanted to, reflect the overall net change in position. We take that out, we're expecting to pay that out this year. And it's not a technical budget amendment, but we plan for it to happen. So we kind of wanted to show you more of a true picture here.
But you've got it in the cash flows
Yes, sir.
where it should be. So that's still, as we look at, to me, the important number is, even after that 800,000, which we hadn't budgeted for, we're still planning to have projecting to have 4.7 million in cash at the end of the year after meeting all our current financial commitments. To me, it's much more important having the cash flow forecast than back on the statement of activities, because we don't even, you're not rolling, we don't have a fund balance for rolling forward. I guess what I'm trying to, we're not projecting the fund balance, we're projecting our cash balance going forward.
This here will give you a more true change in net position for the year overall, though, because if we do pay that out, I can back that out, but you're gonna be at a higher change in net position, but it's not going to be factual because you do plan to pay that out this year.
Well, I understand that, but I'm saying you've got it over here on the cash flow, so we see it going out. And the important thing is, to me anyway, is what's that cash number, not what the change in position number is. That's just an accounting number.
Yes, sir.
To me, the important thing is changing cash, but if the other board members want it that way, that's fine. I just don't, to me, that's not,
The cash flow is
I
more
would
on
not
a
have shown it there.
projection estimated type situation, and, your budget is going to be what we are planning to do.
So Danny, your question is if we did a budget amendment, adding it back into our budget, it'd be okay to put it on here?
I'm not saying it's not okay to put it on there, I'm just saying, I'm sorry, it's the accounting nerd coming out of me, I can't help it. I'm just saying that's not technically right. We did not budget that 800,000. We are gonna spend it though, and it's properly shown as a projection for the cash. The change in position is really when you're talking about what is the change in the net surplus, retained earnings of EIC, and we don't, that's a number, but it's not, we're budgeting off cash. It kinda gets back to our discussion when before we had those set asides, that was in the financials. And even though it's money we hadn't spent, we were showing it like we spent it, so we would know we wouldn't have it to spend. But when we redid the financials, to me, the cash flow projection took the place of all that and said, based on what we've agreed to do, here's how much cash we believe we're gonna have at the end of the year. Like I say, it's just I just personally don't think that's correct, but
Okay.
however y'all wanna show it,
We'll review it and
it's
go.
fine.
Yes, sir.
I hear what Danny's saying, but I do like having a picture to say of what we budgeted this year, this is what we have left over. I mean, so looking at that plus the total cash position, two different data points.
Right, and I did ask Trina to add that in exactly for the reason you're saying, and the reason it's highlighted in yellow is because it's not part of the approved budget, but we highlighted it, we added that in later because we do expect to spend it this year. And I think that was the point, is when we're doing cash flow projections and we're trying to anticipate how much cash we have at the end of each quarter, the end of each month, the end of the year, we have to decide what we expect to spend for that. So it would be the same kind of concept as if we put it divided out in the statement of activities. It's just in a lump sum there in the budget. We can certainly take it out, still keep it in the statement of activities. Your ending cash could be the same if we use those projections. So it's however you want to see it, really. I mean, we know what it is, but we did highlight it in yellow for that specific reason, because we know it's not part of the adopted budget, but we also know that we don't budget for projects always unless it's something we know at the time of budget. So it was kind of just plugged in there just to say, hey, these were after the fact additions, approvals by your board, and we do expect to spend that this year. So that was kind of the idea when we're talking and really looking at things like investments and those kind of things. We have to look at what we project that cash is going to be. So it's really your preference on how you would like to see it.
Any other thoughts?
I don't care.
Mind if it's there, not there?
I don't mind it being there.
All right,
I don't mind it, I'm not an accountant, no. I don't mind it being
You
there.
don't have the sickness.
Well, then, the intent is to reflect what you budgeted,
Right.
what you plan for, which is kind of what we talk about on the revenue side. Your budgeting process includes what you've calculated or estimated to be your income. When the income changes, and you roll the, we talked about this the other day,
It
rolling
changes on your cash
forecast.
flow, that's right.
So this is an addition, but I'm like Danny to a large degree. If you didn't plan on it, it doesn't belong in your annual budget.
Right, and you're right, and we can certainly take it out. It was just a plug number to say, okay, after the fact, you approved these projects and they are gonna be spent this year.
It's caught up
But we
in-
can certainly move it from there into statement of activities, and it's the same
Yeah,
message.
that's really where
Yeah,
it goes.
same
because
message as far as we're concerned. We just wanna make sure that
We
you're clear,
anticipate paying that eight
That's
hundred,
right.
but we may not.
That's
pay it.
right.
They could be delayed for
like the
some-
25,000 for the airport, same kind of circumstance. We may
Exactly.
or may not spend that, but
But that
if
was
we don't
planned.
plan for it and then it comes up and we didn't plan for it, then we're in trouble, so.
So can we take the statement of activities and
You're not
have
in
the
trouble.
budgeted items on there, and then just
Sure.
for informational purposes, plug the, for example, on this, the hospitals deal, just so we can see how that's gonna affect our change in net position for this year. And then I think we'll be correct from an
Yeah.
accounting standpoint, but we'll still have all the information that we currently have.
Sure. We just wanna make sure everyone's clear on what we anticipate spending.
Okay?
Is it, this is so simplistic, and I'm definitely not an accountant, but is there any way to note that this was an approval, because it has been approved after the budget?
Right, and that's
Is
why
that
it's
what you're
highlighted in
saying?
yellow, but we can certainly
Highlighted in yellow
asterisk
works for
it.
me, because I'm a color person.
Right, we can asterisk it, we can take it out altogether and add it on at the bottom as a, an after the
Just
fact.
However you wanna communicate
Okay.
to address Danny's concern, but I'd like to have the information on there.
Okay,
Me too.
okay.
Okay.
We'll find a way to make sure it's in the statement of activities somehow.
Thank you
That's
very
more clear.
much. Y'all wanna go ahead, y'all got the next item on the investing opportunities and debt overview?
Yes.
Y'all wanna go ahead and step into that?
So, before we get started, I was gonna address those two things but we talked about that. Trina's gonna hand out a copy of the city's, investment policy. So this will kind of tell you what we utilize or what we have to live by when it comes to investing, public funds, and that includes EIC dollars. So, we've talked about this quite a bit in council and also here that, 2 years ago, I was investing in stuff that was 3% or better. And the facts are interest rates are low. And that's kind of across the board, not just with EIC, but with city funds also. But I guess if there's a positive to that, sales tax is outperforming the difference in what we're giving up in interest revenue. So, we kind of have to just make good decisions when it comes to, the way we want to invest and keeping money safe, of course, and just watch the market as it continues to change. So, go into the first page here, and I'm not gonna read all of this, but this comes out of the investment policy, it's just language from there. And so anytime in investing, public funds, safety, of course, is the primary concern. So we wanna make sure that everything we invest when it comes to money that doesn't belong to us is 100% safe. So that's our first concern. Liquidity, especially when we're talking about EIC dollars, because of the amount of cash that's in the bank. We want to keep that liquid because we don't know what projects are going to come up unexpectedly. You're going to fund something that we need money today. So we want to make sure that it's really easy to get to if you need it. We also do ongoing cash flow forecasts, so not just for EIC, but also for the city's operating budget, taking a look at what cash is coming in from what sources, what maturities we have, when we're gonna need money for maintenance and operations, but also for large projects expenditures and those kind of things. So we monitor that monthly, and tie it out to the general ledger, how much money we have coming in, what expenses we had going out, and just kind of keep track on where we expect to have what money, so we can decide how much and how long we can afford to tie up money, and how that equates to how important the interest rate is. So diversification, obviously in a market other than public funds, you would have a lot more options for diversification. We're pretty limited on what we can invest in, and that's one reason I brought you guys the policy, so you can see exactly what we can and cannot invest in for safety reasons. So Diversification, we can buy CDs, we can invest in securities, we can buy commercial paper, and a number of other, housing market, a lot of times Fannie Mae, those kind of things that we'll buy into. We've never historically done that with EIC dollars simply because of the cash in the bank. So we've always kept it liquid. I would say up until the last 12 to 14 months, the pool has pretty much stayed as with the market. It hasn't fluctuated as much. Now, we've seen it in the past 12 months really start dropping off. And we laugh about the $250, but that's the reality. And it's the same with the city too. It's not just EIC. That's just the market that we're in. And the investments that are out there aren't offering us enough difference that it's worth going out and putting a whole lot of money into those for the return that we would get for what we have to do to buy those investments. So, you'll notice yield is the last priority whenever we're talking about investing public funds, again, because we want to keep it safe and we want to keep it liquid. So, we really just consider what we have going on and how much cash we have on hand. So I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. This tells you a little bit about TexPool. So as far as safety, right now you guys have 3.2 million invested in TexPool. It is all in TexPool as it has been as long as I've been at the city. That rate at the end of December was 0.09, which, we know is the lowest it's been. Actually, I went back to 2017 and I think it was down to like 0.03. So it is higher than those days, but not near the 2.7 that we were at 2 years ago. TexPool is very safe, so it's a government investment pool. If you don't know what TexPool is, I'm sure you do. But cities, counties, school districts, any of those kind of entities can invest in that. They have about a $10 billion portfolio, and I'll show you that as we go along. And they are AAA M rated by S&P, so very, very safe in their investments. And they maintain our investment policy on hand, and we maintain theirs. So they know what cities have to do, and they make sure that they invest with their average maturity to where we can get to the money that we need to whenever we need it. If we needed all of it, we could get to it right now. As far as liquidity, really what this comes down to is just carefully considering what money you have going out or that's planned to go out and what's your comfort level. As far as you have $3.2 million, we have $2.1 million in committed projects right now. Not to say that's all gonna be spent today, because we know it won't be, but where's your comfort level as far as how much money you would like to tie up? And of course, we're open to any direction that you would give, providing that, just with the knowledge that if we get to the point to where you say, okay, hey, Julie, we want you to buy $500,000 in commercial paper, and you're okay with that being tied up for 9 months, then I have to do it when it's in front of me. So it's not something I can come to the board and say, we have this investment opportunity, are you okay with it? We have to act on it right then, just like we do, every other day with city funds. Let's go back to diversification. So this slide on diversification shows you, while it doesn't look like EIC is very diverse, if you look at TexPool and how they're diversified, you can see that, the money is invested in a multitude of ways, just they're investing it for us virtually. And it's 100% liquid whenever we need it. So again, it's just a matter of deciding, what's your comfort level. We looked at a few investment opportunities, just to kind of give you some ideas. We did check all local banks. We just kind of gave you a high and a low here. So on a 24-month CD, the best rate we could find was 0.5. And, we typically don't invest more than $245 on a CD, just simply because the $250 is FDIC insured, and we don't want to have to go through the small amount of them writing us a check every month to make sure we stay under that $250. So as a rule, we stick to about $245, whether it's a city CD or not. Commercial paper, these were the best rates that were out there as of a couple of days ago. So I did the math on this 209-day or this 9-month commercial paper right here. And if we were to buy into that, it'd be about $1,800 in interest. So I would not recommend we tie up more than $500,000, just given your current cash flow. Of course, would definitely be open to whatever discussion you guys wanted to have about that. So with $2 million in project commitments, that leaves us about $1.25 million that we could, make decisions about investing. Seeing, those rates, given you know, they've been creeping up a little bit, especially on the commercial paper. We've seen them go from 0.25, 0.30, even 2 months ago, you know, up to the, you know, half points now. So, you know, that could change. And so if we tie up money and then in 2 months we're at, you know, 0.6 or 0.75, did we really have, you know, a lot of gain with what it takes to get those bought? I'm gonna talk about debt a little bit, but any discussion or questions or comments on investments?
I recall, you know, first coming on EIC that there had been a shift, prior to me being a part of it, that, you know, EIC kind of had made a substantive change in how they approached projects, that there wasn't gonna be this accumulation and hold and hold and hold and build up a war chest, you know, for some big whale project that came along. It was gonna be more of, you know, let's look at the projects that are presented to us, let's make decisions in real time and fund them. It just doesn't seem to me to be, especially considering the order of priorities, and I noted that was specific language, you know, first we're looking for safety, and only fourth are we looking for return on investment. I'd hate to be in a position where, you know, we take $500,000 or $1 million and put it in something to try to earn a few more basis points, and a good project comes along that we really want to do, and we either can't do it because we got money tied up, or we're going to take a penalty and we're going to end up worse than where we started. And so that's one of the questions I want to ask, is if we go in and buy commercial paper or CD and it's at this slightly higher rate, if we pull it out early, which I'm sure we can do, but I'm sure there's a penalty associated with that, how is the penalty calculated?
Everyone's a little bit different, so especially on commercial paper. You know, we try to, with the same kind of methodology on the city side, is to not invest in something that we think we might have to take out early for those same reasons. Because especially if we're able to buy something that has a coupon or something like that, you know, you're giving up the coupon, so there's a good chance you're giving up all the interest that you would have made, just depending on, you know, what the duration is, how much the coupon is there a discount? Did you buy it at a premium? You know, there's so many different factors that it's just really hard to say because everyone's different. But the answer is yes, there's going to be a hit of some sort, whether it's a negative hit or not, or it's just less interest than we thought we would make. It just depends on the investment. So, you know, of course, in this situation, if you said, okay, we're comfortable tying up $500,000, $250,000, then we would obviously keep those things in mind. We wouldn't go buy something that had a huge coupon rate, knowing that you're not going to get the interest until it matures. You know, we would want to buy something that was more of a flat, you know, solid interest rate. The other thing to think about as far as investing in commercial paper is typically those chunks are in like 5 million, 10 million. So if our financial advisor sends us, you know, here's 3 commercial paper options for you today, and we say we want $250,000, the chances are we're probably not going to get it. You know, it's going to go to somebody who's going to spend 3 million, 5 million, something like that, because he's trying to break it up into multiple pieces in order to sell that whole 10 million. That's how he makes his money. So the chances of us being able to buy in at that level is pretty small. I've never bought a commercial paper for 500,000. Not to say we can't do it, but they're typically $1 million, 2 million, 3 million. But if we were to let them know, you know, this is something we're interested in, let's really keep an eye on those lower packages, one with more of a straight line interest rate, you know, we can certainly look at that route too.
Considering all the variables, is there anything that you've seen that jumps out that you think we ought to consider?
In my opinion, no. I think we continue to watch the market. You know, if we had $5, $6, $7 million in the bank, I think it'd be a different conversation. But I don't think the gain is worth, you know, the risk of what we A, have to do administratively to get it done, and then B, the chance of having to take it out for a project you wanted to fund immediately. That's my opinion. You know, of course, I'll follow your guidance on that.
So I have a couple of thoughts. First is we offer basically it's an insured money market account that's a cooperative. It's through the CDARS program. And so by cooperating in farming out with other insured depository institutions, you can have essentially an unlimited amount fully FDIC insured. And the money market rate on that is 20 basis points right now. So it's not a huge number, but it's better than text pool, and there's no loss of liquidity, and it's 100% safe.
Yeah, but money market, I think, is one of the we cannot invest in. I would go back and check for sure, but yeah, we cannot put money in a money market. And
It's a bank deposit that's 100% FDIC insured.
I can definitely research it. I don't want to speak from the hip on that, but we've always just passed over money markets, and I think it's part
It's
of our
essentially a
exclusion.
savings account.
Right,
It's a bank account that's
Right.
fully FDIC insured.
right.
So,
Trina, what are we making on ECR right now?
20.
Yeah.
No,
so our-
sorry, 25.
Yeah, 25 on ECR. Now, EIC doesn't have its own checking account. We did look into that. But because the cash isn't enough to offset the monthly expenses, we'd actually be paying out, bank fees if we did that. So on the city side, our ECR is 20 to 25. So we're making that, in our daily cash, not on the EIC side. So we can certainly look into it. It's better than 10 basis
yeah.
points.
I mean, I think the expectations for the Fed to raise rates this year, I think we'll see something maybe before the end of the first quarter. I probably wouldn't want to do any kind of investing in a 6 or 9 month type instrument until we at least start seeing
Yeah.
some Fed movement, because
You would expect we would
25
see
basis
some. It's
points
been a
would be
while.
a big, compared to where we're at right now,
Correct.
that would be significant. So, and personally, I don't, I'm concerned about the risk of commercial paper. And the yield is not that much better, and you just have the company credit support behind it. So it
Right,
may
and
be
we-
allowed by policy, but I think it's got more risk to it. So
Okay.
I'd rather see us do something that was,
Yeah, I appreciate this a lot. I know it was a lot of work but it served for a long time, and it's the first time I've heard this presentation. And it's very helpful to me, because I have been asked, why don't you guys, you're getting 9 basis points? Come
Right.
on, lend me the money, I'll pay you, you know.
Right.
So this gives me a good response.
Right, and we do go through exercises quite a bit that, obviously as part of our daily
Sure.
responsibilities, just watching what's happening and trying to follow the trends we can, and how long do you wanna wait, and what's the Fed gonna do, and this rate's great today, but what is it gonna be tomorrow, and, just really trying to use good judgment and making decisions, and when it comes down to it, that's really what it comes down
I commend you. It
to.
was an excellent presentation. It
Thank you.
certainly made it clear to me that we're doing the right thing with tax pool, and I think, again, if we had $10 million sitting there, it might be a different story.
Right.
With, $2 million on the books for projects or something like that, but that's not our case.
Right.
And it's certainly not worth $2,000 a year in interest to lose that flexibility that we have today.
Right, well, just know we're watching it, and then we're very aware, both on the city side and for EIC, so we watch it regularly, and if we see an opportunity that's gonna be better, then of course, we're gonna act on that.
We certainly periodically can, these are discussions we certainly had during the budget season, but, we can put this on the itinerary to bring to you guys on a periodic basis, however frequently y'all wanna look at it, just to get a taste for where the market's at, and if we need to be doing
Well, I
something
really
differently.
think, Julie, this is, you're watching this all the time from a broader perspective. I think we can certainly hear about it as often as the board wants to, but I would say just, if you see something that hits your radar that you're like, hey, these guys need to consider this, then by all means, tell EA, let's get it on the agenda and let's talk about it, but
Okay.
I don't think we need a monthly report on it.
Okay. We could bring it biannually or something like that, or just at your request.
Yeah, or it's yours.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. You
Certainly.
said you had some comments on the debt.
Oh, yes, forgot about that. Okay, so I want to just give you a quick overview on your debt obligations right now. So, principal debt outstanding is 10.6 million. Interest outstanding 2.6 for a total of 13.284 on total debt outstanding. I know there was some questions about refunding or early payoffs and those kind of things. And so just looking at your cash flow, of course, I don't think payoff is really an option, but just to give you a little bit of information on debt overall. So if you chose to pay off a bond of any kind, you would have to include the full amount of interest up through the next payment date. So, if you paid it off in March and your next payment date was in August, you would have to escrow the interest during that time period so that you paid the investor that full amount. And you'd have to give a 35-day notice to the bond issuer, and then also would have to be approved through city council. So kind of a big deal to pay one off early, not to say it can't or has never been done, but just things to consider. We also do have some opportunities for refunding or advance refunding. So within 90 days of a call date, we can do a non-taxable interest rate, which is really the way we'd want to go. Anytime you do a taxable rate, that means that the person who is earning interest on your loan or your debt has to pay taxes on their revenue. So that means you're going to have a higher interest rate if we refund it from a taxable way. So, but anytime within that 90 days, we can do that. And you can see that the 2015 one is the one that would be up, that has the most near call date. So we can expect Hilltop to start doing some analysis on our debt, probably the end of 22, first part of 23, for that August call date, to just kind of see if there's any market for it. Do they feel like it would be a good move for us to consider it? And so we can certainly bring back that to you guys whenever we get that analysis from them to decide whether there's a refunding opportunity. The interest rate on that one's pretty low. It is a non-taxable debt, so you know the chances of us getting better than a 1.8, I think it is on that one. Is that, oh no, that's the highest one, yeah. So we'll just wait for Ann, is the answer on that one. And we can certainly bring that back to you and say this is what Hilltop is recommending. And then we can just make some decisions at that point on whether there's a possibility for refunding that larger debt.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Could
questions
you
on
email me at least that debt schedule? I'd like to have a copy of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you say it's possible to do a partial payoff?
You can do a partial payoff, but same thing applies, so you have to make sure you're within 90 days of that call date. So if you wanted to pay off part or all or whatever portion you want to, that's certainly possible. So the closer to the call date you are, the better. You could pay it off in partial at a payment date, so February or August is when we make our debt payments. So, you could pay off partials at those times. Just so long as, you keep in mind, we do have to escrow any interest between the time we actually deliver them the payoff and the time the next payment would be due.
Well, it would be good to look at that when
Sure.
the opportunity comes and say, this is what it would cost us and this is what we would save. It's just that simple. So it would be good in a timely fashion.
And again, that's gonna come down to what kind of cash are you willing to give up or tie up? Because if you're gonna pay off the $500,000 portion of it, is that worth giving up that on your cash flow for the, 1.8% or whatever, whichever one you decided to pay.
Sales tax continues to grow like it is.
We're hoping. I mean, we looked at
There
it
you
again
are.
this month. Sales tax looks strong. We've, I continue to forecast it out through the end of the year. We give you a forecast of, for the next few months, and just kind of keep following that and see if the trend line follows. There's just so many things happening economically, politically right now. It's just hard to say. When 30% of your sales tax comes from your top 5 sales taxpayers, it's kind of risky for me to say, hey, I'm comfortable adding 15% to your sales tax budget, But certainly something we can look at as we go through.
All right,
Okay?
Thank you.
thank you.
Of course.
All right, we're to our executive session. Does anybody want to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss workforce housing development projects under sections 551071, 72, and 87?
So moved.
Second?
Okay,
You just stay in here.
sure. All right, so we're out of executive session. Any items for future agendas? I have one announcement. EIC received a letter from Attorney Ralph Behrens offering to be a guest speaker if we ever wanted him to speak on the area of criminal law and constitutional law. So noted. Kesha, would you send him a thank you, and we'll let you know if that ever comes up? Can't think of anything immediately that we would
Hopefully
need to engage
Hopefully
in.
not.
I like the criminal part of that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
As we mentioned before, we'll work towards finding some appropriate days for a potential tour of the Killdeer element. And then we did hear from you guys. You want a report on airport, which I mentioned earlier, that Mary's happy to come in February or a future date to give a status update there. And then we are getting Ashley Boyle lined up to provide an update on sports complex. So we'll
Okay.
get those on your future agendas.
all right, we're adjourned.
Great.
Thanks.